You'd think that by this point in computing history, questions like how to write a number would be a bit of a settled subject, and yet here we are. Hello all you crazy people out there, my name is Michael, I like wizards and dragons and making games, and in a recent beta, GameMaker has introduced a few, I guess we can call them quality of life improvements to the way that you might write a number. So this is a set of changes that has been introduced in beta version 2022 1100.0242, and it will make it into the official stable version of GameMaker in 2022.11, so the November 2022 update. And to demonstrate what this is all about, let me go into a blank project. Let me go just create a fancy script. And I think I can full screen this because we don't really need to see anything else today. So let's say that you wanted to write out the number a million. So we can say something like var 1 million is going to equal, and then we're going to have to count out 1 0 0 0 0 0 0. Is that the correct number of digits? A quick look over that number tells me that that is the correct number of digits. And if you come from the West, when you're writing out numbers like this on paper, you might do something like 1 comma 0 0 0 comma 0 0 0. That doesn't really work in GameMaker. That doesn't really work in pretty much any computer language. If you're coming from some non-English speaking parts of the world, you might instead write that out on paper like 1.000.000. And likewise, that's not going to work either. You can probably imagine why. So up until this point in GameMaker, we've been stuck to trying to write out the number like this and counting the zeros, making sure that we have the correct number of place values and that we're not off by an order of magnitude in every direction. You could also say something like power of 10 to the 6. That'll also give you the value of a million. Some of the more enterprising programmers among you may do something instead like macro million and then write it out like that so that you can just invoke the macro instead. But starting with the recent beta, we have the ability to, instead of writing out a number like this and separating thousands places with either a comma or a decimal point, we can actually separate numbers with an underscore, and that is going to, that's just a small quality of life change, which has the potential to make numbers like this somewhat easier to read, somewhat easier to type out, and somewhat easier to, well, not accidentally screw up when you're typing them out. The underscores themselves aren't going to be actual part of the number. When you run the game, it's going to make no difference. The underscores aren't going to be there. That's just for your benefit in the code editor. If you were to show message 1 million like this, then we would see that we just get the number. You do not have to break up numbers like this in groups of 3, so you could instead, if you really wanted to, you could arrange the underscores however you wanted. And you would see that we get the same number. And I'm just going to throw a game end down here because that bug that I made a video on reporting earlier this week is actually fixed in beta. And I can do that now without having the game crash on me. So this is also going to work for decimals. The example in the update notes, and as far as I'm concerned, it's an example that's just as well for me, and I might as well use it, is if you wanted to quickly work out decimal points, so something like pi 3.141 underscore 592 3.141592653. Now I'm curious how many digits of pi I could remember off the top of my head, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, the point is that you can use the underscores in the decimal part of a number as well, and when you run this, that's actually going to be truncated because GameMaker rounds numbers to 2 decimal places when it prints it, but if I were to use the string format function, that's 9 decimal places, isn't it? I could print this out with the full number, and we can see that the number that the underscores in the decimal part of the number are well, as they would be expected to look. Again, you could arrange the underscores however you want, and this also works for hexadecimal. So if you had a long hexadecimal number, and once again, the example used in the update notes use one of these funny, like, I forget if they have a name. They're like words that you can spell out using hexadecimal. Dead beef in this case. They sometimes appear as magic numbers in like file headers and stuff. Anyway, not the point. Let's just say that we had a random hexadecimal number that we might write out. 0x for the hex literal. Maybe A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just go to number as any. And when you convert that to decimal, this variable is still called 1 million, even though it's patently not anymore. But that's okay. Regardless, this is the decimal representation of that hexadecimal number, and if you wanted to break this up into either groups of 4 hexadets or groups of 2 hexadets or something, just to make it easier to read, the underscores will work here as well. You can see we got the same number. That's fun. And I suppose if you wanted to be funny about it, you could write something like, oh, I don't know, BADC0DE. And then you have like a funny magic number that's like some, I don't know, doubles as like some funny leet speak or something like that. And you could use the underscore to space it out a little bit and make the joke a little more obvious, perhaps. Have I gotten off topic again? Anyway, the other major change related to this that I'd like to draw attention to is that we now have binary literals, and realistically, I don't expect a lot of people to have a lot of use for binary literals. I know that it's sort of a trope in computer programmers that like they spend their whole days looking at just binary, like blobs of data in binary or whatever, and that's anyone who's ever done any amount of computer programming since like the 1970s can probably attest to that mostly not being the case. But if you do want to write a number in binary for whatever reason, and I can think of at least a few reasons you might do this, which I'll get to later, you can do so with the prefix 0b and then whatever number you want. So if you want to write the number, let's say 16, that's going to be 0b 1000. So this is going to be a binary literal for the number 16. You're only allowed to have numbers 0 and 1. If you try to put anything else in there, it won't work, and GameMaker will complain because that's not a valid binary. Can't call them digits, can I? Because those are base 10. But this is actually 8, so I need another 0 there. Alright, thank you, GameMaker, for reminding me that I actually can't count, and this is why I let the computer do the work for me of all the hard math things. That's 16. And if you wanted to, let's say, I believe 24 would be 11000. Yeah, alright, cool. That's binary. So you can do this. You can also break this up using the underscores if you want to, and it'll produce the same answer. This is something that you can just generally assume will work with any sort of a number that you try to type into GameMaker now. As for the actual uses for this that I can think of, if you have something like a set of masks, a binary mask, I paid $20 for that joke, and I'm going to use it, damn it. Let's say that you had something like a mask representing different like elemental types or something like that. And let's say you wanted to be able to combine them and manipulate them with things like bitwise operators so that maybe you could like figure out what, I don't know, magical element a monster is weak to or something like that without having to like check every single type. You could say var element fire is going to be equal to, let's say maybe 1, var element water equals 2, and I'm going to try and space these out a little nicer. And var element earth equals 4, and var element what's another traditional element? Air can be equal to 8. And then let's say that you wanted to maybe create a monster that was weak to a certain combination of elements. Var elements I am weak to can be equal to element fire, logical or, binary or rather, let's say fire and, I don't know, air. And then those are the 2 elements that your monster can take damage from or whatever. And traditionally, this is how you're going to create a series of masks like this. You can make them macros, you can make them enums, you could handle them in different ways like that. You might prefer, instead of writing them out in decimal like this, writing them out instead in hex with the 0x prefix to make them hex numbers. And that'll make them a little bit easier to scale, because the next one will be, instead of like 0x16, which doesn't really make any sense. It'll just be 0x10, and then 0x20, 0x40, and so on and so forth. You could also use the power function that I used at the beginning. Except instead of making 10 the base, you can make 2 the base. And where's the number there? There. But now, what you can do is you can use the binary literal and you can simply count up using the binary literal here. And I think, at the very least, and other people may or may not agree with this, but I think this is more easy to read when it comes to creating things like binary masks like this than to either use a hex literal or to use the power function or to do something like that. I'm probably going to go back and revisit some old code in GameMaker 2211 and change it to look like this, just because I think this is a little bit easier to read. And generally code that's easier to read is the code that you should write, all other things being equal. And again, other people may or may not agree, other people may or may not think that this is a useful thing to do, but starting in the November of 2022 update to GameMaker, this is now an option if you want it. So I'm going to end things off here. This wasn't supposed to be a long video. There are a number of other things that GameMaker has added in recent updates that I would like to cover. I'm probably just going to post them as I get around to covering them. There's a couple of fun string-related functions. There's a couple of fun array-related functions. And I know there hasn't been much by way of new GameMaker features in the last couple months as Yo-Yo Games has tried to buckle down on stability for the long-term support version of GameMaker. But November 2022 has added a number of fun new tools that we can use and or misuse. And there's a good chance that most people are going to have at least one or two things in this November 2022 update that is of interest to them. So with that, my name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games. I am not going to provide any code for this. I generally don't when it comes to simple computer science exercises like this. I do try to post about 2 game dev videos a week, one tutorial, one let's make a game. So if anything like that appeals to you, feel free to subscribe. I have a Patreon, so if you want to contribute to the channel, I'll look for links to that in all the usual places. Otherwise, I hope you found this to be useful, and I will see you all later. Special thanks to Army Armbuster, DJ Gibbles, Edward Holt, GameMaker, Harold Guidry, Jonathan Bernardez, Kiexi, Sindra Larson, Squarecrow, The Oz, and Zenjamin for supporting these videos. If you want to support the channel, head on over to the Patreon page down in the video description to join the fun.